pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we went overseas and arrived in Europe in February of '45. And of course, fortunately for all of us, the Battle of the Bulges what really ended the European War. The Battle of the Bulges, those guys were successful in subduing the Germans. That was between, Battle of the Bulge occurred December 45 to January 40, December 44, January 45. We got over there in February. And I'm 19 years, I was just turned 19. And I was taken out of the ordnance outfit and put into a special outfit to take German prisoners. And this is a gun that I was able to send home that I took off for German war prisoners. You're welcome to look at it if you want to. Probably one of the more interesting aspects of my time over there was when I was in the 7th Army, which was and two divisions of the 7th Army, the 32nd, the Rainbow Division, and the 45th, the Thunderbird Division, took Dachau out of the original concentration camp established by Hitler. And right after they took it, my outfit, we were there the next day, and we got a chance to go through it, which was kind of a nightmare because it was a real shocker. Because there were people who were there, they were actually walking skeletons, and there were piles of dead bodies. There was also a string of railroad cars on the track with bodies 4 to 5 foot deep in all the cars, and the stench was unbelievable. And for to see this and experience it was unbelievable. It's very difficult to understand how you could do that to men, women, and children.
I was rehabbing this house, and I said, okay, kids, you get your own rooms. Well, they hated living there. But you get your own rooms, and you can paint your room, to decorate your rooms however you wanted. Well, our 11-year-old daughter, she wanted teal and black. Back in the mid-'90s, teal and black was big for little girls. You know, okay, Colgate colored green I thought it was, but teal for her. And I said, so Ryan, what do you want? He goes, I want red carpet and blue walls and white ceiling. Red, white, and blue. And boy, he picked out the bluest blue paint, cerulean, and the reddest blood red, better than cardinal red. And it was, okay. That was, he kind of got into that a little bit, but he was always about joining the Army. And, well, we kind of blew that off when he was a small boy. But as he got to be in high school, he was on the high school baseball team, the high school soccer team, involved in some other sports activities, select sports. He was a sport guy, got to be a junior, he quit all that stuff. I said, how come you're quitting, Ryan? You were good. He was a starting catcher on the high school team and starting goalie for the soccer team. Why do you want to quit? He goes, now I'm going to get ready to join the Army. Well, that sent his mom into a major tizzy. But what are you going to do? You got to kind of roll with it. And so Ryan, he got online, found out all the specifications and requirements to be an Army Ranger. And he worked out physically and mentally to get his grades up because he had to have such a grade level. He couldn't be just anybody to be a Ranger, apparently. He had to have grades, and he made it all happen. When he graduated from high school, I said, so Ryan, what do you want to do? He goes, let's go sign up. Well, wait a minute, let's talk about it a little more. There was not too much talking. By the end of June, he'd signed up to join the Army, and he was accepted and went to Fort Benning. That's where he trained to be an Army Ranger. He passed all the basic training at Fort Benning and advanced infantry training, paratroop training, but he didn't really like jumping out of planes very much. He was, we'd email back and forth. He wasn't much of a talker. He'd email, though, and text. I couldn't text, so he had it on me. But he jumped, he goes, these night jumps were horrible. He goes, I jumped out of the plane at night, couldn't tell where he was going, saw the other paratroopers around him. He landed in the only thorn bush in the whole swamp. Next time he called or he emailed back and said that when they parachuted out of the planes, he landed in an ant hill. Apparently got real bad ants in Georgia. And sent us photos of all the ant bites all up and down his legs and his body. He said, Ryan, for Pete's sake, son. Well, we would go and we would attend all of his graduations from basic and their advanced infantry training and his ranger school training. And he was extraordinarily proud of being a ranger, and I was too. It was quite the accomplishment for young Ryan. It wasn't long, though, before he deployed. First deployment was to Iraq. And we would email back and forth. He came home after 4 months of being in Iraq, was on leave, didn't do anything. His confidant, I'd ask him, what was it like there? We didn't do anything, Dad. It was really boring. Just stayed in the base the whole time. And I thought, wow, that's kind of a dud, Ryan. You did all that training and you guys don't even do anything. You know, that was actually all a lie. After the fact, after he was killed, we were invited to Fort Benning and then up to Fort Bragg for a special ceremony for all the special operations soldiers that had been killed in the preceding year. And I met his, like a major, somewhere, not lieutenant colonel, because we met him before, but the major that was actually in charge of the operations that they were doing. I said, so like, Ryan never got to go. He goes, every night they went on special operations. Every night they were out somewhere, involved in a lot of firefights. He told me that Ryan's platoon, I think it's a platoon where you got like 12, 14 guys, they were chasing that Al-Qaeda in Iraq fellow, that al-Zarqawi. And I remember hearing the story there where they had him holed up in a building, and so they dropped the JDAM on it and blew it up and killed him. Well, Ryan and his platoon were there. They had chased him along with other units of special operations to this building. And Ryan and his people, found out that Ryan was the guy that found al-Zarqawi, Ryan and others, and he was still alive when they found him. But according to Ryan, he never did anything. And in Afghanistan, the same way. While he was in Afghanistan, they went on special operations every night. They got involved in a lot of firefights. It was very harrowing to hear from his commander all the stuff that Ryan did, but stuff that Ryan said they didn't do anything. Boring, very boring. Yeah, right. And so what I decided, as I was getting the monument kind of squared away, we'd build this monument, we'd get everybody listed, the branch of service, the rank, their name, their full name, their date of birth. This is what it's going to be like in Edwardsville City Park, but we're going to incorporate all these things into a plaza called the Gold Star Memorial Plaza. As I was showing him, the one guy said, like on his name tag, it says Guards. He goes, he probably wouldn't like that, being a standout kind of thing. I said, why is that? He goes, well, it's because Army guys just want to be one of the guys, just like you said. And that's the same kind of thing he told me. I was never in the Army, so I don't know. But it's all about, it became apparent that it's all about your buddy, the next guy. It's not about you. It's about the guy on your left and the guy on your right. And so the more we thought about it, I thought, that's probably right. Besides, there's 74 sons on this, so we changed his name tag to read our son. So whenever anybody looks at the monument and they say, well, who's that a statue of? And on the name tag it says our son. So everybody can say, well, that's our son.
This was our mission when we were in Iraq. So it's pretty straightforward. We moved both dry and refrigerated cargo. These were our missions. Pretty straightforward. Relocate to new operation site whenever they told us to. Pack up and move. We did that 3-4 times when we were in Iraq. Establish a new area of operations and defend that area, and then conduct transportation operations out of that area, and then mobilize and deploy, and then of course force protection. These were our impacts to our mission. This is where it gets kind of interesting. We were the third to go. So you had the 3rd Infantry Division, the 101st, the 1st MEF, all moving in different parts to converge onto Baghdad. And at the border you had the fuelers, the fuel tanks lined up right behind them, because that's what the other 2 units needed bad. So that was first, or second to go. And then right behind them were our trucks. We were hauling everything that you could possibly imagine to support these units: food, water, clothes, bullets, I mean everything. And then it was like at the racetrack. Everybody just is like, they sounded a horn and woo, and everybody just took off across the border, and nobody really knew where they were going for a while. And that was scary because in March and April, that was at the beginning, and they just called a halt. And I'm sure you guys that paid attention to it, they just halted everything. The government said, stop. If you're a unit on the battlefield, you're going to stop where you're at. You're not going to move anymore until you report in. And what happened was, as you guys are well aware of, if you followed it, is they ran ahead about 2 weeks ahead of the supply chain. So they were already up in Baghdad, and we're down at the border trying to figure out where they're all at on the battlefield. And it went on for a good month and a half that I can remember where I remember several missions where I would drive 18 hours, 600 miles, and get to that point and look around and nobody's there. And then the Nasiriyah, Iraq truck bomb happened in November 12, 2003. That was 2 miles away from where I was at, and that had a big impact. I remember that. IEDs and small arms fire, I remember those. What they did here was it went through various handoffs. The Army had it. That's not the most pleasant picture, but the Army had it. It was handed to the Marines. It was handed to the Air Force, and then it was handed to the Italians. And every time it was handed, each unit got more comfortable when they took away a piece of the security. And by the time the Italian Army came and took it over, you could just drive pretty much right up through their camp. And the Marines, I remember, had it locked down tight to where this whole road leading up to it was all serpentines. And what they mean by serpentines is where the person had to serpentine in and out. And the Italian Army got rid of it all, and they drove that fueler there that you see charred. And they were able to drive it right up to the building, and it was packed full of explosives. That's the fueler. I was 2 miles away, and our tents literally went sideways on that explosion. That's how big it was. Killed, I think, 40 Italian Army soldiers. So it was very, very bad. That's what it would look like going down the road for us. So every truck had to keep going, 45 miles an hour, and if you deviated from that, you could hit it. These are the kids. What's troubling is, well, they don't have no clothes, number one. That kid's probably 3 years old, standing on the side of the highway, and this was an everyday thing. Day after day after day after day after day of seeing it, you just became immune to it, and you just didn't look at it. At that time, you go back there, I didn't have kids, so I know a lot of the soldiers that were underneath me did, and they would throw stuff to the kids, and which caused more to come. And then they, as you can see, the size of them compared to the size of our diesels didn't work.
Why were they out there?
They needed food. That age right there, they're pretty much on their own. They were on their own. They had one time we were pulling over for a break, and every day the kids would come out. These same kids. It would be like 3 in the morning. And when we started sometimes doing our missions we would leave maybe 5 get to the certain spot about 5 in the morning. The same kids were out there every day. I mean, you'd be in the middle of nowhere. And they would know like clockwork. So one day I said, I always yelled at my soldiers for doing. I said, wanted to know where these kids were coming from, and they were down. So we stopped, and I got out and I walked down like the side of a culvert, like you would see on our roads here, and they had a sheet in front of underneath the road, and I opened the sheet, and the whole underneath the road you could look down through there. They were all the kids were laying in that sheet or in that spillway. And that's where they stayed. And their alarm clock was our trucks rolling over top. And that's where we would get them up, and they would hurry up and come up and run up and try to get everybody to throw them food or whatnot for their daily food. So, the only thing I could do was open the thing, look at them, and, close and move on. So, yeah, that was tough, but, what do you do?